we expect our leaders to look like leaders. It still, I think, delineates those who lead, those who follow.
What is it about neckties that appeals to you?
You dress the way you wish to feel. And if you wear sweat clothes, you're not going to feel well put together. You dress like a slob, you're going to feel like a slob. If you dress like a gentleman, you will feel like a gentleman. It's like putting that suit of armor on. When you're ready to go to battle, it gives you the pep in your step. All of my neckties have meaning. They are an association with something. Somebody who also shares that association will recognize the tie I'm wearing, and we will realize we're in the same club, had the same background, whatever it may be, and it is a bonding experience.
So you have two advantages over us Americans. You kind of been exposed to wearing neckties your entire life. The second advantage you have is that in the UK, you guys have the wonderful tradition that a necktie represents belonging.
I think the necktie delineates different groups of people. So we're in an era now, as you say, where oligarchs and billionaires, they dress casually. If you see television interviews with the likes of, I don't know, Zuckerberg and Musk and people like that, it is a rare occasion where you'll see them dressed up, unless they're giving evidence to, some sort of official oversight committee or some such. But the truth is, and I think it started with Steve Jobs, who became quite well renowned for wearing a black sort of polo neck jumper with his clothes, all of his clothes. And he was the first of the big billionaire CEOs who sort of dressed downwards. And of course, people look up to these folks, so they emulate them. So you will dress as your hero dresses, generally speaking. This is why people wear sports clothes when they're anything but sporty in life, because they see their sports heroes dressed that way. I think the tie is the step where you will know if somebody's wearing a tie of their own volition, so they're not wearing it for a work purpose. There's something about them. They've chosen to step outside normal social boundaries to make themselves look smarter. So for me, if I was to see a young person, just to say, for instance, if I was interviewing somebody for a new job, an opening, and this, a young chap came in wearing a tie and everybody else didn't, I wouldn't choose him based on his tie, but I'd be more interested in him because clearly he's taken that step further. So I think it shows to the world. It's a visual demonstration that you are taking an interest in your appearance. And to me, that makes me interested in that person. I mean, still to this day, world leaders, wear neckties, even where their culture is not that way. I mean, I recently saw the Emperor of Japan. Every time he kind of is seen internationally, he wears Western attire, always wears collar and tie, whereas culturally, that isn't necessarily the national dress. I mean, in my country, obviously, the king would always wear, or prime minister would always dress accordingly, as would the president of the US. It would be unthinkable to see them without a necktie. So still, I'm pleased to see that people in leadership positions are demonstrating that the tie has value. It shows, we're dressed well. And let's be honest, suits and jackets, they're cut for the wearing of a tie. There is this big gap right down the front. And if you don't wear a necktie, I think, even the finest suit in the world from Savile Row would look bland and benign without some color derived from a tie. So I think there's always going to be a place for a tie.
It's interesting because I recently did a tour across the US. Our big takeaway from Washington, D.C. is the most powerful people in the world are wearing neckties. And they're not going anywhere, at least in that group. However, there are some politicians, particularly, I hate to call out my own governor here in the state of Utah, but he hates wearing neckties. He always wears a shirt without a necktie. And sometimes people can pull it off. Sometimes it just looks bad. Do you have any thoughts on why some people can get away with it, other people can't? Any thoughts on that? I hate to hijack the conversation, but
No,
I would
not
love
at all.
your
I mean,
insight
this
into
is
that.
interesting stuff, and particularly the government in the US. I know last year, Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania, I think is from.
Oh, yeah.
He famously, obviously, obtained a waiver not to wear a necktie in the Senate, and there was a I think there was a sort of government-wide understanding that men would no longer need to wear neckties. I was so pleased when that came out that there was uproar in the US and people said, no, no, we expect our leaders to look like leaders. We don't want, I mean, he was dressing very casually, if I recall, in shorts and sweat clothes. And you think, my God, if you can't dress well to sit in the government of your nation, when do you dress up? So I was so pleased when actually that act of rebellion, so to speak, by Fetterman actually turned the conversation around. And now I believe that it is enforced that neckties have to be worn in the Senate and Congress, presumably. If you want to be a leader, the tie it still, I think, delineates those who lead, those who follow. Certainly, if you want to look like you're in charge and you know what you're doing and you're going somewhere, you have ambition in life, is it that tough to wear a tie?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's good to know the rule, which is wear a suit and a tie. If you break the rule, know that you're breaking the rule. Is there a way to not wear a tie and still look put together?
I mean, if you really didn't want to wear a tie, I would go heavy on the other accessories which are available to you. So I would certainly be thinking about a boutonniere, a lapel pin, a pocket square. You need to dress the outfit, particularly as most men wear. Let's be honest. I mean, it's navy suits and charcoal grey suits, which practically everybody's got in their wardrobe. They're quite benign. They're not very exciting. One would say they could be very boring. Coloured suits, because they're practical and neutral, and that's why people choose those suits. So if you're choosing not to wear a tie, you're losing the only opportunity that you have to bring charisma to your outfit. Without a tie, I would perhaps choose a very boldly patterned shirt, which would bring that necessary, little whoop whoop to the outfit, or other elements, or a bow tie, a cravat. I do like, or an ascot, as they're called in North America. I do enjoy those. Less common. You might be perceived as being somewhat eccentric in the modern world if you wore a cravat very often, but yeah, it can be done. But for me, the tie just, it fills that gap so nicely.
Hey, if you like this video, check out our other conversation with Ash here. If you've already seen that video, check out our conversation with Ash on his channel here.